Welcome to this edition of Labor Vision. Hi, I'm Bob Delaney, Executive Director of the Institute for Labor Studies and Research. Labor Vision, a production of the Institute, focuses on topics of importance to working Rhode Island families. This evening's edition will host Legislative Issues with Jim Parisi, where we bring the legislature into your living room. We hope you enjoy this edition of Legislative Issues and Labor Vision.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us for this edition of Labor Vision, where we bring the General Assembly right into your living room. My name is James Parisi. I'm a field representative with the Rhode Island Federation of Teachers and Health Professionals, and I'm your host this evening. Today we're going to be talking about funding programs for the developmentally disabled, and we're pleased to have with us an advocate for increased funding, Representative Ray Hull. Ray, thank you for joining us today.
It's a pleasure, Jim. Very, very much a pleasure.
So I understand you've been in the police department for over 25 years now, and you serve on both the House Finance Committee as well as the House Labor Committee.
That is correct. Yeah. 28 years in the police department and still going strong.
Hey, good for you. Good for you. And you've only been in office since 2010, is that correct?
That's correct.
And your district is District 6. That's the western end of Providence as well as a piece of North Providence.
That's correct. Providence, Fruit Hill section in Manton and Mount Pleasant. And a bit I touch into Wanscott, just a tip.
Okay. Well, before we talk about the funding for DD programs, why don't you give our viewers a little bit of background into yourself? Where'd you go to school and how'd you get involved in politics?
Well, I was educated right here in the city, LaSalle Academy. Then from there, Roger Williams University, a stint at University of Rhode Island also. And then finally I finished up my master's degree in a small, nice Catholic college up in Worcester called Anna Maria College.
Oh, sure.
And then from there I joined the police department, stayed on the police department, and still on the police department, I should say. And how I got into politics was kind of freaky by nature, I guess.
Our viewers love a good story, so.
And it was kind of funny. I called my rep, and not once, not twice, but maybe 3 times, and no response. And I said, well, I can do that. I've been serving people all my life, and I can continue on, and just in a different capacity. So with that, I ran in 2010 and won. And they said it was unheard of, but it's not unheard of if you stay in tune to people and listen to what they have to say. And it's been very, very rewarding. And I say rewarding because if I can touch somebody's life or do something for somebody, I've accomplished what I needed to accomplish. And I do that in the General Assembly, and I also do that in my daily life.
Sure. I commute through your district. I come in on Chalkstone Avenue every day for work, and I remember seeing your lawn signs early on. You got an early start on your campaign, and you worked pretty hard at it to beat an incumbent, didn't you?
Yes, I did. But it snowballed in that actually people just wanted to see something different. Not that they were disappointed, you know, or I would say upset with their representative that was present. They just wanted something to change. After all, he was there 26 years. And that's long for anybody. I don't care where you're at.
It sure is.
You know, and politics is just a funny, funny animal.
But you had never run for council? You had never served on any other elected body? This was your first run at office?
I was elected to the retirement board in the city of Providence, so I did run for an A office, but it was just amongst my peers in the police department. I still presently sit on that board, and then from there, I've always wanted to do it. I always wanted to get into some form of politics, and this was it.
Okay,
you know?
well, terrific. So how did you get involved in the issue of funding programs for the developmentally disabled?
Well, as you know, you may not know, I have the Fogarty Center that's in my district, and I went there. And I listened to what they do, and understand when in 2010, or was it 2011, that they cut the budget by $24 million. I'm saying, wow, there are silent people that are out there that we go about our daily lives, and we forget about them sometimes. But when we cut their funding, it really affects them. So I'm saying to myself, I said, you know, how can I effectively help and make a change for that one individual in their life? And that's how I became interested in developmental disabilities, because I actually seen the people that it affects, what they do, and how we can make a change. And I continue to do that. So I'm happy to sign on the legislation or present legislation for the developmental disability.
Sure. We have had a couple of shows over the past couple of years on the cuts. There's unionized facilities at the Trudeau Center, where my union represents the workers, Blackstone Valley, represented by AFL-CIO, United Nurses and Allied Professionals represents the folks up at Seven Hills and Woonsocket, and then Cranston Arc is represented by the machinists. So there's always been a labor interest in this issue. I remember having some people talking about the specific impacts that those budget cuts had in terms of cuts in pay and cuts in programs. What did you see when you went out to the Fogarty Center?
Well, when I went to the Fogarty Center, they were very upset that they would have to reduce their service because of the budget cuts. And let me tell you, they're working on a string to maintain their service and the quality of performance that they have to give to their constituents, to the people that are there. And they're not paid a lot of money, not a lot of money at all, but they do tremendous work, tremendous when I say that. And I speak only because this is in my district and it hits close to my heart, but I know the Trudeau Center also, and many other organizations that are out there that do that. So if I can effectively make the change, I'm gonna, you know, and if it's this one little thing, hey, it makes it that much better for everyone.
It sure would. And I know the Assembly did respond somewhat after the initial $24 million cut. You restored about 40% of it, over a year ago now. And then last year you restored a couple million. But these organizations are still getting less money than they were 3 years ago. And that's cuts in programs, it's cuts in services, and that doesn't even talk about inflation. You know, costs have gone up for a lot of things in the last couple of years.
You're absolutely right. And you have to understand, the people that we're talking about, they become like family. They're really into someone's family, and they're providing that service, and they may not even provide enough money for their own self, their own well-being, their own households. So we're not asking for a lot. And if you looked at the funding of Buddha's funding formula back in 2011, well, the rate of pay was actually higher than what it is today. Mm-hmm. But they're still providing the same service at less money, you know. And I'm thinking about that caregiver, that one individual that effectively changes your life or gets into your life, that helps you out and does it just fine. That's the people that I'm fighting for.
Sure. And you're right, there was more money in the program years ago when Buddha, the state agency that runs the DD organizations, created their new funding system. They had a target of reimbursing these agencies, I think it was $13.97 an hour for every hour of work that the direct support professionals work. And then the $24 million cut went in. They cut it down to $10 and change. It's crept up, but it's still well below that benchmark that they set 3 years ago.
Right. So I hope my legislation at least addresses it, you know, and that's why I've introduced that legislation to bring it to a level where it's acceptable, so that we're not losing, because you're going to lose people as the economy starts to change and people start getting more confidence in the economy and they start gathering different jobs. We're going to lose quality people where their heart is, because they have to live also, you know, and that's what's going to happen if we don't do something now, you know. And it's not asking for much, we always say, well, where are we going to find the funding for it, or what are we going to do? I said, well, we can find the funding because it's not much money, because the outcome is greater than what you put in. And just ask any of those individuals who are caregivers of what they do to their lives, you know.
So As we're taping this today, we haven't had a hearing, but we're going to have a hearing on your legislation to increase the reimbursement rate to $13.97. What are you expecting to happen at the hearing, and what are you hearing from your colleagues on the Finance Committee about funding this important service?
Well, there will be some pushback. I can understand that because we're talking about a limited amount of money. It's just finding the money in the budget. With an $8 billion budget, I mean, we can find it if we really have to. We can find it. It just means working within the parameters that are set forth, not increasing anything, finding it, you know, and making sure that it works, because the benefit is better for us by finding it to keep those individuals, you know, employed, actively employed, but most importantly, providing a service. You know, we can find it. It'll take some time, but we'll find it.
The budget's always about priorities, and it's terrific for our viewers to see that, you know, funding these programs is a priority for you, and hopefully you'll have some success in getting other people on board as well in your committee.
Thanks, James. Thanks. I really like that, and we'll have some success. I'm optimistic.
I love optimism because we've been talking about this issue for a long time, and the one additional feature that is new this year. There was some investigations by the federal government in these organizations, and the Department of Justice of the federal government came out and issued a report saying that Rhode Island needs to do a better job of creating a scenario where these people with developmental disabilities have opportunities to work in the workplace instead of just, you know, at certain sites, what they call, you know, workshops or segregated work areas. And I imagine it's more expensive to have people work in the community than it is having them all work in one location. And you can't expand those programs without some additional state resources.
Yeah, I did read that, and you're right. But it's getting there, you know, it's getting there, and actually getting the funding back and then opening up to where we need to go in the future. It's just getting there, and this is the start, because what you said was correct in that expanding opportunity for people with developmental disabilities, and we can do it. We can do it, and I make sure that we will.
That's terrific. We've got a couple of minutes left. Do you care to share with our viewers other pieces of legislation that are important to you that you're working on this session that might be of interest?
I like to, what legislation I grab onto and then I try to look forward to is things that will affect the lives of ordinary people. And I have a project that I'm working on, the Woonasquatucket Road resurfacing and restructuring. I'm working on that because that ultimately affects people's lives. Because if their neighborhood looks better, they're better. You know, so that's one.
And our viewers in the building trades love hearing about
yes.
Bricks and mortar projects to put people to work.
But most importantly, it changes the lives, and it will change the neighborhood. So, and then I'm also working on other police-related legislation where I changed the parole guidelines for first-degree and second-degree murderers. And then the last one is developmental disabilities, what we're working on now, and raising the rate to at least a nice benchmark of $13.97. So those things ultimately affect people's lives daily, not a whole bunch of different legislation that you don't really know what's going on. And you know, but I try to stick to legislation that people understand and people do. You know, because if I stay true to my mission and true to people, they'll be true to me.
That is so important and so right that you know, people want to see where politicians connect with their daily lives, and
right.
when you pick certain projects that connect with people's daily lives, that's what's vitally important. Last question before we wrap up. You know, as far as the state budget goes, what can you tell our viewers about, you know, when your committee, the Finance Committee, is going to be, you know, getting down to, you know, the brass tacks of hammering out a budget, and what do you think some of the biggest issues are?
Well, it's still fluid, very much fluid. There has been a change since changing leadership. We have a tremendous new leader, Speaker Mattiello. He's already set in motion jobs, you know, which is nice. But most importantly, the budget now is being formatted probably in a different way than our previous speaker. So it's fluid, you know. I just want to make sure that I have my voice and a little bit that I have to contribute, that they will be heard.
Well, thank you for being the voice of the developmentally disabled as you continue work up at the State House. And thank you for joining us this evening.
It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. Thanks, Jim.
And thank you for joining us for this edition of Labor Vision.
I'd like to welcome all of you to the 11th Annual Cesar Chavez Scholarship Breakfast, and I really want to thank all of you for the support that you provided us this morning. It's wonderful to see that we have a full house. I would like to begin by, first off, by thanking several people. Providence College, who is a co-sponsor of this breakfast, I would like to thank them for that and also for the use of this facility. In particular, the Global Studies Program and the Office of Institutional Diversity, who were very helpful and supportive of the breakfast this year. I want to also give a shout out to Kara Sebulko, who was part of the Global Studies Program. Kara is also a member of the Cesar Chavez Breakfast Committee, so I want to thank her. I'd like to also recognize and thank Senator Jack Reed, who has a representative here today. He was not able to come, but he has provided his support to the students. Also, Congressman Langevin, who was not able to come, and also sends his congratulations and support for all the students who received their scholarships. I'd like to thank Navigant Bank, who is a co-sponsor of the breakfast, and the Progreso Latino, who will also is part of the program, and you'll hear more from the director. So why are we here today? There's several reasons. A Mexican-American man named Cesar Estrada Chavez was born on March 31st, 1927. He was born on a farm near Yuma, Arizona. Cesar and his family moved to California in 1938 to make out a living like thousands of other overworked and underpaid migrant farm workers in their community. But rather than to tolerate the daily injustices heaped upon him, which also included forced child labor, sexual harassment of women workers, and the use of pesticides harmful to both workers and consumers, Chavez chose to devote his life to organizing and improving the lives of migrant workers. But I'm going to stop there because we have our special guest speaker who will talk more about Chavez and from a very personal connection. Instead, I'll talk about the Cesar Chavez Scholarship Fund. In Rhode Island, the idea of introducing the Cesar Chavez to Rhode Island was born in the early 1990s when I worked for a group called the Hispanic Social Services Association. Those of you who might date yourself remember that organization. It was the parent name of the Center for Hispanic Policy and Advocacy, or CHISPA. I was raised in the Southwest where Cesar Chavez was a household name. Everyone knew who he was, and people flocked to see him whenever he was in town. So when I moved to Rhode Island, I realized that really was not the case. Only a few people have heard of him, and most did not know more than his name. But one day, much to my pleasant surprise, the executive director of Progreso Latino, which was Patricia Martinez at the time, not only knew who Cesar Chavez was, but through her deep knowledge of him, she had already begun to introduce his name and legacy to those who were part of the youth program at Progreso. Patricia and I spoke about a joint effort to teach the kids about Chavez. And out of that, a mural was painted in what is now known as the chapel room of Progreso. The mural stayed there for many, many years, and it's now been painted over. There was some construction done, and it was painted over. In order to execute that mural, the kids had to do their research on Chavez. And they learned not only what he looked like in order to depict him, but they learned that he was an important Latino role model to those who believed in giving back to the community. About 10 years later, the Cesar Chavez Scholarship Fund finally officially took shape when in 2004 we held our first fundraiser at the Rhode Island Foundation. At that time, we raised $4,000. And with those funds, we developed a mission to offer small grants to young people, to junior high and high school students, to encourage them to go out and to give back to the community by organizing projects that emulate what we call the Cesar Chavez core values. There are 10 core values that he stood for. First, there was service to others, sacrifice, a preference to help the most needy, determination, nonviolence, acceptance of all people, respect for life, knowledge, and innovation. Today, we continue to encourage and promote service and learn community projects among the young people of Rhode Island. In 2010, the Cesar Chavez Fund formed yet another partnership with Progreso Latino, and together these two organizations work from January to March to promote the Winter Community Food Drive. This drive fills the needs of the Central Falls Food Pantry at Progreso Latino and other pantries in the Blackstone Valley. And here's what has transpired through the partnership. Not only does the food drive encourage individuals and businesses throughout the Blackstone Valley to collect food for the pantry, but we also empower young people in the schools to work with us to promote Chavez's 10 core values. So in the past 3 years, we have selected a group of students who have done outstanding work for the food drive. Twice Central Falls, one was a Central Falls students received the award, and then the following year, Central Falls High School received the award. Last year, Slater Junior High in Pawtucket received the award. So this year, as in other years, we are recognizing a group of students who are full of energy and dedication and who I believe truly represent the core values of Cesar Chavez. For the past 2 years, these students have collected food, rallied other students in the school, the parents, and the teachers, and they donated all that food to the Central Falls Food Pantry at Progreso Latino. When I visited their school in January, the students told me that they had challenged themselves to exceed last year's collection, and I really have a feeling that they have. At this time, I'd like to introduce and welcome Mario Bueno, who is going to give a presentation on behalf of Progreso Latino.
Buenos dias, good morning, everyone. How are you? Very happy to be here. Progreso Latino is a community-based organization with a mission to support the community to achieve social-economic progress. And it's going to be our 37th year. So we're still babies, but we're growing. And today is a special day for us because since 2010, like Marta said, we, as an organization, began the Martin Luther King and Cesar Chavez Community Food Drive. We start with celebrating Martin Luther King, and then it's culminated here. And we did not have at the time a food pantry, but we saw the need, and we thought, hey, you know what? As a community, we can make a difference. And together we can make it happen, especially for people who fall through the cracks and really need our help. So this food drive involved non-traditional organizations, banks, schools, adult education programs throughout the different communities and cities. And now we have the food bank at Progreso Latino because unfortunately the Ralph Holden Center closed after the bankruptcy in Central Falls. But that's only pulled us together. And we are so very happy to have students from the learning community here who raised and achieved their goal of raising 1,000 pounds of food. My colleague was supposed to come here today, but she's lost. She's still not here. She called me about 15 minutes ago, still looking for the right place. But she's almost here. But we will start without her. So I'd like for the learning community students and their families to please stand and receive an applause. so we appreciate the contributions that they have made to this campaign, and we encourage everyone here to give. To give is also to receive. Just this week, there was someone coming to the food pantry and they had a little piece of paper, and I don't look at the details, so I'm like, she brought a little piece of paper. She was very quiet, humble, her head down, and sometimes it hurts. It's really a lot of work, and many people feel embarrassed to ask for help when they're in trying times. And I think that a lesson to me that day, and a lesson that I want to share with everyone is that it's not shameful to ask and to need. As a community, we're supposed to support one another, and we form a circle. Many times in this society that we live in, it's all about being independent and being strong, but it's all, when we give and when we receive, we're sharing with one another, and that forms a bond of friendship, and it forms a community. And I think that's so important. And so many kids today are taught that it's shameful to ask. It's actually not a shameful thing to ask. And I think people are very honored to give as well as receiving. So it's so important. And the work that the learning community has done, Kath and the kids, is just extraordinary. So today we have a special speaker who will speak with you. His name is Rafael Raposo. He's one of the students. And I'd like him to come up and say a few words.
Good morning. My name is Rafael Raposo. I am a fifth grader at the Learning Community Charter School. I would like to thank you for this opportunity. The Learning Community Charter School has been doing this food drive for 4 years now. Every class from kindergarten through 8th grade received a box to donate food. We also had a book project in our classroom of Cesar Chavez to help us understand him more. We read how Cesar Chavez raised salaries for farmers. We read his struggles and his achievements. I am happy to say the Learning Community Charter School achieved a great goal in donating nearly 1,000 pounds of food to needy. Thank you and have a great day.
So we have certificates of appreciation for the students, and I'd like them to come up. Rafael, you first. And Marta also has a special T-shirt, Cesar Chavez T-shirt for you as well. And also some flowers. Vernia is here.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Labor Vision. We appreciate your input and encourage your comments. Labor Vision can be seen on this channel 3 times each week: Tuesday at 7 p.m., Thursday at 8 p.m., and Saturday at 5 p.m.